So, good morning, Breakfast Clubbers.
Good morning.
We got. This is what we're gonna do. There is. This is the last Saturday that we're going to be doing it here because we can't really. Anytime we have even a little bit of a popularity and we max out. We just can't grow here, and it gets to where it's uncomfortable and so on over time too. So on the temperature, like now it's kind of chilly. Hopefully it'll warm up a little bit, but it's always too cold or too hot. But Donna's been doing a great job. Thank you, Donna. Yeah, but it takes out a big giant chunk of her weekend, and it's just building up to and getting ready for, and it's just a pain in the butt. So we're going to go ahead, and Terry Major is going to take over on the organizing and scheduling. We'll help with whatever and promote, of course. But he's been doing the website all this time anyway. So,
all right, Terry.
So Terry has hooked up the Denny's on the 101 and wherever it's Scottsdale over there. Has a room for at least 50, and we'll see how that goes. We'll give some of the East Valley guys a crack because we're like Northwest Valley, and that's been a thing. So we'll go ahead and start that next week. We'll make a big deal out of it, and Terry will come up with the speakers, and we'll support him for that and get that going. And what I might do is I need, we're going to have to do like Mike, Brian, and I have done this 1 month of Saturday kind of a tech build of something, and we may start doing some meetup pirate, get more piratey and go around saying R a lot. And so we'll see about that as time comes on, because it's really starting to take off, and the design of the ship is getting done. We just brought on a what do they call them? A contractor, supervisor, building whatever person, and her husband is an electrical engineer. That's a good friend. And we have the architect for the outside, the CAD system, command and control, fiber optic, different material stuff on the building of the Precariat. So it's really taken off. If you go to the forums on pirateswithoutborders.com, you'll see the ship is being designed way more than I anticipated and a lot faster. So we're putting it up as a fundraiser with crypto and Bitcoin Cash, kind of funding the release of the Precariat, which is the files, the Blender files, so people can have them to start working on it. This is my trip to Mexico for an Acapulco was enlightening. There, after that, we spent a week in Panama with some people. That was also enlightening on several levels. And I'll let Tim kind of give his thing while I finish eating. But I tell you, the main thing that I learned is that the United States does not make up the world, and that it can be bypassed, ignored much more than it has in the past. They have a philosophy and this hegemonic, unilateral, we rule and do everything with everybody, and it must be through us mentality is being chipped away at. And when I go, well, how's we don't deal in the U.S. Well, how are you going to do this? We don't worry about them. I mean, they're bypassing. The United States is like a rock in a stream, and all the water's going around it. And it's amazing how those don't care. They're going, well, maybe not. They're not going to be. Putin has just come out and gave 5 big military technological advancements of all your missile defense stuff and everything. Doesn't matter when I got 20x speed of sound hypersonic missile if I just launched it in your backyard and it's gone now. Bring on all your aircraft carriers. We got the South China Sea Islands that the Chinese are putting in. It's like we're going to be, run around stomping, waving our arms, and they don't understand what's happening in this world. And the future is going to be a lot different too. And Tim's going to talk a little bit about that. Banking and the economy, it is phenomenal how many people don't understand how it's still functioning as much as it is. And it's going to be, somebody will go to the back of the bus and then here it comes. And it's going to be any day. And I'm worried about that, so I can't buy enough silver. As much crypto as there is, I'm still like, I'm thinking I need me some more silver, just in case. So there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of different events we have to go to. We're going to Libertopia May, and then Davi will be here right before that. We'll work on a bunch more stuff that will be taken. And then we have Pork Fest. Then there's Red Pill Expo, which is in Spokane with Gio Griffin's going to be doing that. We're going to participate in that. Then right after that is the Libertarian National Convention. And then 4th of July, we'll go up to Washington State to chill. But we're going to be going to a lot of different things and promoting a lot of the stuff that we want to with a lot of people that need these services and are explaining what they're doing. And the stuff that I'm becoming aware of, a lot of it is energy. This whole energy thing, batteries, electrical power, it's changing everything. And all these other guys are whistling past the graveyard. The other thing they're whistling on, I just tell you, they don't have appreciation enough for two things, bunch of things. One's transportation, flying cars and airships and all this kind of, futuristic you see in Tomorrowland to come. It's coming, okay, really faster than people realize. The other thing is energy. It is going to be so many things that are going to produce energy in so many different ways in so many different places. And because energy is so dominant in the crypto space, a lot of the movement of people and processing and so on is to these small hydroelectric places like the Northwest, where you can get 3-4 cents a kilowatt in Washington. It's down here 12 cents. That's a lot of money to be made when you're doing a lot of data processing and your crypto and so on. So this is balancing out all over the planet, and a lot of new mechanisms, including portable nuclear power plants that you can put in your backyard. Here we go. And Russia and China's already doing it. They're creating neighborhoods, or their little ship, or they're out and back in the camp on the ice sheet of something, and this is happening. They also, just this last summer, the Chinese did a quantum entangled communication box to where it doesn't matter how far, you can be on Pluto and have a real live conversation. It goes faster than the speed of light, quantum entanglement, anywhere in the universe, and whatever you do this particle, it's entangled with that one, it's the same time. So communication is going to be instantaneous, and we're having the benefits that they just put up. They announced the plan for cell phone service on the moon. This was just a few days ago. They just launched, Elon Musk just launched the first 2 of 12,000 satellites that's going to give ubiquitous worldwide Wi-Fi service. They just launched the first satellites for that. Things are going to be changing very quickly. And a lot of the discussion that we're having on different things aren't taking that into consideration, and it makes the conversation moot. It's not even worth having if you're not taking into consideration a lot of these other things. Prices in real estate, I think, is going to be taking a dump. It's already starting. London is in crisis. Europe has got all kinds of problems. Big cities here are starting to go. The luxury prices on bigger homes are dumping. I learned some economics on some things that just freak me out. And I want to share this one thing with you, and I haven't even thought it all the way through and where I can explain it and act like I know what I'm talking about. But the economics are going to change a lot. And one of the reasons is because of low interest rates. And I'll give you an example. They were going, a subscriber to a cable service. Like I got satellite service of Cable One, Satellite, Digi, whatever the hell it is. DirecTV, something like that. Each one of those subscribers, at the value now of a $30, $40 subscription or $100 or whatever it is, they are worth about $15,000 to $20,000 as a subscriber to that company. And I'm going, there's no way that they're paying that much or stay that long or you'll recoup it over that much time. I'm like, what the hell does that even mean?
Information.
No, it's more than that. No, there's the information, there's a bunch of other stuff. This is just basic economics. To get that subscription rate, if you're paying, let's say, $100 a month for your communication stuff, well, how much money do you have to put into a financial instrument at the low interest rates that we have of 1.nothing% to equal that subscription that you make for that company each month? So you would have to put in $16,000 or $20,000 in some financial instrument that's paying 1%, or 1 point something percent to equal the revenue that you're getting from that subscriber to this thing. Whatever it is, a magazine, a health thing, whatever, all right? So they look at it that way. Each one of these subscribers, to replace that income stream in interest or whatever, they have to have $20,000 over in somewhere else to do something. So they're going, no, when the interest rates are that low, that's what gives value of all these subscribers, big giant value in these companies, because to replace that revenue, they have to put so much money in an interest-bearing whatever the hell it is. So I'm going, wait. And the interest rates are doubling. They just went from 1 point something, 2.8 to 3.2 or something on a 30-year treasury, which is what I watch to see kind of what the 10-year treasuries going. Different countries, they won't lend them money. So as ours roll over, what's going to happen? 2%, 3%. And as the economy is starting to go and the dollar's, I'm starting to see this creep up. I remember when it was 8% in U.S. 30-year treasuries in the early 90s, and they were freaking out. I didn't understand this. One of the reasons is all these companies are going to be worth a lot less because all the investment that's in them on these revenue streams from subscribers and whatever the heck it is that they do, when the interest rates go up, all that money is over somewhere else. And it's just going to implode. So that's why, if they wanted to get Trump, what's the time? When you start raising interest rates. Will it be able to absorb it? I don't know. But I'm telling you, man, there are so many factors that are involved here that a lot of the guys that, in Panama especially, you line them up and you're talking, they're going, we are out of the market. Why? Is it going to go? They go, it's so crazy. It's unpredictable. It's corrupt. It's not, it doesn't, comport to anything that we've known. We're out. We're over here. We're doing something else. We're taking a break. We'll pick up the scraps later. We'll get, whatever. So there are so many people. If you read Zero Hedge or Miss Shedlock or the Freedom's Phoenix, all the stuff that we do, the end is nigh. What's the future? Well, Tim and I had a little bit of glimpse of it. I'm going to let Tim come up here and give his experience, do like a 15-minute, give what for summary of your 15-minute talk, and then we'll get to Todd. Tim Picciott, Liberty Advisor.
Good morning, everybody. And like usual, didn't know I was talking until a couple minutes ago when he told me I was going to be talking. So I made a few. Thank you. But yeah, made a few notes. So this was my first in Acapulco, and it was a great experience. You had 1,700 people who were there, and the great part about this is everybody was all of the same mindset. So you don't have to go down there and explain to anybody what the Federal Reserve is or banker corruption. I mean, these are all people that already know this. Everyone down there is, incredibly intelligent. There's no, I guess there's no snowflakes or libtards that are down there. So, it was a very good crowd. But my speech, in order for me to give that speech that I gave when I was down there, I was affiliated with a broker-dealer. So I come from the investment world. And my broker-dealer decided in January to ban all advisors from talking about cryptocurrencies, mining cryptocurrencies. And the company was LPL, and the PL stands for Private Ledger. So you can imagine why, they wouldn't like something that has to do with a public ledger. It sort of, screws up their entire paradigm. So that was, so I was like, okay, well, that's sort of was to be expected. So that was, sort of big news. Then on the other side, the RIA, or the Registered Investment Advisory I was working with, February 5th said, we also don't want you to go down there and give that speech. So in order for me to give that speech, I had to drop my Series 7 license, pay close to a $17,000 fine for breaking a contract a year early, and also then disaffiliate with the RIA, this $1 billion RIA that I was with. That I was one of the first people at that. So it was a big decision for me.
What's an RIA?
Registered Investment Advisory. So it's the ability to charge people a fee for advice. But I already had backup plans, contingencies, and I was already planning on leaving them anyways. Because I was already making these plans. I had to hightail all these plans, so I wasn't about to be stymied by them telling me I couldn't do this. But essentially, what I've done is I've created a way for people who have significant appreciated assets, whether it's cryptocurrencies or businesses or stocks or real estate, to be able to sell their investments into a charitable trust. Then the charitable trust then pays them, and then they also get a tax-free, they get a tax break over here that then offsets the income they're getting in from over here. And it's really the same strategy when you see guys, I mean, you see people like on TV, like Jim Cramer talks about his charitable trust. Well, his charitable trust is paying him more than likely. So, I mean, we'll see how charitable it is. But, if, don't hate the player, hate the game. I'm using the same techniques that, the Warren Buffetts of the world are using, that the Bill Gates of the world are using, to use their own laws against them and to make sure that ultimately we can turn our virtual currencies into real legacies. Because if we let all the they, them, those have their trusts and their foundations, what's going to happen is their ideologies and their philosophies are the ones that get they're the ones that get perpetuated for all eternity. Whereas we need to use the free market, against these guys in order to have our own ideologies permeate, long past the time that we're alive. And also, you could do this and keep your assets in crypto as well. But if you did want to diversify, then you could also diversify without triggering capital gains. But that's all I wanted to touch on that part. The other facet of what I'm doing is, and I've teamed up with the foundation that's doing that. On the other side of things, I've teamed up with an RIA that specializes in self-directed IRAs, which that means where you can do more advanced things, where you can get off the Wall Street plantation and put, like a rental home in there. You can put cryptocurrencies inside of your IRA. And so right now I'm waiting for the state of Arizona to approve their registration paperwork for the state, because right now they're not licensed in Arizona, so I need to wait for them to get licensed in Arizona. So technically I'm hurting Trump's unemployment numbers right now, so I'm basically unemployed for the next 2 or 3 weeks, so I wait for the bureaucratic paperwork to get approved. But anyways, it's exciting stuff, and I know that right now, I mean, I'm looking at this as good news. Is okay, 17,000 people at my last broker-dealer now can't do this, can't talk about it. Everyone at Merrill Lynch can't talk about it. Pretty much every advisor that's associated with a broker-dealer can't talk about it. And most of them, even if they could talk about it, they don't know anything about it, so they don't want to talk about it anyways, because there's nothing for them to say. So anyways, the speech was really well received, but what I want to touch on now, just while we have time left, is last year I gave my first talk at the Breakfast Club. It was a year ago, this March, so this meeting last year. And the title of the speech was The Trump Effect and Why Good News is Bad News. And honestly, it's more relevant today than it even was a year ago when I gave that last year. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Donald Trump tweeted out, I don't understand why there's all this good news, but yet the stock market's going down like there's bad news. I mean, essentially, he almost took exactly what the title was and then tweeted it out a year later. So I have a screen grab of that tweet that he made. And the premise of this is, we all know that these economic numbers are rigged, and a lot of this recent upswing has been on Republicans' hope, because because a lot of people here who did vote for Trump, including myself, we wanted Trump to be there to pick up the pieces, not Hillary Clinton to have like a Cloward and Piven type strategy where they want to wreck everything through overloading the welfare system and then rebuild it in their own image, or put some of us in FEMA camps. So I didn't elect Donald Trump thinking that he was going to save anybody or wanting him to save anything. I just didn't want Hillary to be the one who's holding the bag, picking up all these pieces. But as there's all this good news, so let's say the unemployment rate is at all-time or super low right now. And again, we know I wrote a book on it called How It's Rigged that you guys can find at libertarianadvisor.com. It's only 16 pages that breaks down how they rigged these numbers. But anyways, by their own calculations, the inflation rate is going up to 2%, which is their magic number. So their biggest fear the past few years is that the inflation rate wasn't high enough. So they weren't stealing from you fast enough through robbing you through inflation was their biggest fear. When really the only reason they are there was supposedly to protect against wild swings in the market and to protect the dollar, but yet their stated mission is to erode the value of the dollar. So you've got that, you've got the unemployment rate, the inflation rate, all this data is by their own calculations doing extremely well, which means that the Fed doesn't have cover to not raise rates anymore, and it's the raising rates that ultimately leads to the real bubble, which is the bond market right now. And so it's a tricky situation because the Fed is trying to save three different things right now. They're trying to save the stock market, the bond market, and the dollar. And so and again, this is all hypothetical, and there's a million different, they always have tricks up their sleeve that they can do. But what I'm theorizing is what's going to happen is that they're starting to lose control of the interest rates right now, where the market is dictating. Again, the market should be dictating the rates. It shouldn't even have the Federal Reserve. But anyways, the market right now is starting to lose control, as Ernie was talking about before. The 10-year I think was at like 1.62 at one point, and now it's close to 3. It's like 2.8 something. And they're really starting to lose control of this. And I think there's some shenanigans going on too, because the Federal Reserve right now they've only sold off about $40 billion worth of bonds off their balance sheet. So from 2008 to like October 30th, 2014, they were printing money. They had printed up more money than they had the previous, entire existence of America, entire existence of the world, I guess. And now they're going to do the opposite of that, where they're actually selling bonds back into the market. But they're selling bonds back into the market at the same time that Trump is probably going to run $1 trillion deficit. So that means the Treasury needs to sell $1 trillion worth of bonds just to fund, this super conservative, well, it's good now because it's a Republican. They're spending lots of money, but he's probably going to run an $800 billion, $1 trillion deficit according to their own projections. At the same time, the Federal Reserve is going to be selling $1 trillion worth of bonds. So who's going to be out there buying $2 trillion worth of bonds? It's going to have to result in the market forcing interest rates to go up, which then will probably make the stock market go down, which then the Fed will probably then react and then probably start printing more money, which will then probably make the value of the dollar go down, probably the stocks go back up. And again, but the important part on this is the timing. So, if you're already retired or you're about to retire, this really affects you. If you're me and you've got, I'll probably never retire, but I can ride this out, so it doesn't really matter for me. But if you're out there and you're already retired, I don't know how long it's going to take for the upswing to eventually occur when the Fed starts printing more money, or I don't know. That's the big unknown, is the timing on all this. And so once I get licensed again, once I'm back, so here you are getting advice from an unemployed financial advisor. No, so, actually it's not advice, so it's just it's all information, and you consult your own tax attorney and lawyer and CPA or whoever, in case this is being recorded. But no, it's a very tricky situation. It's a situation that the Fed has nobody to blame but themselves. Really the only thing that I think surprises anybody here is how long it's really taking. But it was because there's so much optimism now on what Donald Trump is doing. But really, what he's doing, granted, there's a lot of good things he's done. Whether it was the TPP or getting Gorsuch in there at the Supreme Court, and a few other token things that obviously would be way better than Hillary. However, he's not going to be there to fix everything. And so some of the other things that are going on in the stock market, when Ernie was talking, I was writing down a little bit of notes from memory here. But we've got the savings rates are at like near all-time lows. It's like 2.6% right now. So people aren't saving money. So if things are going really great, people should be able to save money. Margin debt at all-time high. We've only been able to sell $40 billion out of a $4 trillion balance sheet, and that sent the market into complete chaos. And I was on Ernie's show January 25th, and I said on his show, I go, the worst thing you could do right now is to be short the volatility index. And it was about 8 days later that if you were short the volatility index in one of the funds, you would have lost 90%. Now, I was allowed to buy that if I wanted to, but I wasn't allowed to talk about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies to my clients. So it's like amazing, like all the stupid shit I could do if I wanted to, but I wouldn't do. But not allowed to talk about cryptocurrencies. And where I'm going with this is they've rolled off 40 billion out of 4 trillion. That's like someone who's 500 pounds losing 5 pounds, and then like saying, that's way too much. That's I need to go back to eating Twinkies and going on the couch. That is the equivalent. That is 1%. If you're 500 pounds and lose 5 pounds, the first 80 pounds should be the easiest in that case. And so with the Federal Reserve, we're only at we've only lost 5 pounds, and they're 500 pounds over here. And the typical Wall Streeter is saying, oh, look at this 500-pound person. He's great. He's having a great time. He's super happy. He's indulging in all this stuff. And we're just saying, well, we said that he was fat and overweight at 350 pounds, and now that he's 500 doesn't mean that there's less of a chance of him dying. And even one of the former Fed governors said that this is an economy that's, it was Richard Fisher said that this is an economy that's held together by heroin and cocaine and is now being maintained on Ritalin. That was former Dallas Fed Governor Richard Fisher, not Tim Picciott saying that. And so it's just, yeah, a lot of craziness that's going on. And the other crazy thing did I mention this? So the largest, one of the largest bond funds is the iShares 7 to 10 year bond fund, which is an index fund. And last week they saw the biggest weekly inflows ever. At the same time, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet actually mysteriously increased last week. So they should be selling bonds, but yet their balance sheet increased. And so any increase, since we're on a fractional reserve system, can really be levered up about 10 times. And so the conspiracy theorist in me is like, well, it's very interesting that you have the largest inflow into the 7 to 10 year bond market fund ever. At the same time, the Federal Reserve balance sheet also went up to basically stem the bleeding from what happened with those few 1,000-point down days. But again, I can't prove this. But I try to think of like, okay, if I was them and I was this corrupt, what would I do? And then you see the data that sort of proves some of this stuff. But anyways, so as I'm about to go launch this company, if people are interested in having self-directed IRAs by doing some more advanced things, I can do that for you. If you're already retired and wanted, some personalized advice to maybe how to weather this storm, that's something I'll also be able to do for you once I get licensed again. And but no, I wasn't prepared to talk today, but I'm always prepared to talk. So just thank you guys, and I'll give it back to Ernie.
Trump gun control.
Trump power gun. All right, so wait.
Trump gun control.
All right, so I've for those of you who might follow me on Facebook, I've got about 32,000 people, 33,000 people following me, and it's been very disheartening lately. Because I've been effectively shadow banned on Facebook, where I used to be able to turn my phone on in 1 second. I could have like 50, 60 people watching me like instantly. And now it's like 1 or 2, or Facebook's actually only showing about 3/1000ths of 1% of the people that are following me that my video is reaching me. So let me say it again, 3/1000ths of 1%. And maybe once I find out I started criticizing Trump again, maybe they'll like unshadow ban me and let me get that message back out there. But I've been getting lit up recently online because I've been criticizing Trump's gun control comments, and a lot of people are accusing me of like editing stuff together. Well, if you look at the full clips, they're not too much better. I mean, I have a clip I showed Ernie today where Donald Trump saying, the problem with these AR-15s, these are guns that are sold in the black market. These aren't guns that you can just go into a store. And then Dianne Feinstein's like, actually, yeah, you can buy these in the store. And Donald Trump's like, you can? And this is so he's getting his gun control lessons from Dianne Feinstein. And there's also a quote where he's saying, something should have been done about this long ago, and we need to make sure that this bill gets raised. So AR-15s, you have to be 21. He's like, Joe, can you do that? He's like, and I want you to make sure the strongest language in there is possible. Make this bill stronger, not weaker. We need this bill as strong as possible. And then telling Dianne, he's like, Dianne, if you have any ideas on things that should go in here, I want you to consult with Joe and then make sure they're in the bill. And so, maybe I didn't play the full 10-minute clip, but everyone's accusing me of all of a sudden here I am, standing on principle saying that even though I took 2 months out of my life, supported Donald Trump, nonstop, wrote hundreds of articles, doing tons of memes, was reaching over 1 million people a week, and now I'm getting called out by a lot of the people, a lot of the hardcore Trump supporters who are calling me, liberal, blank sucking, blank, because I don't want gun control. So it's like, wait, so I'm liberal because I don't want gun control? I'm like, this doesn't even make any sense. But where I see this going is that the only people that matter in this entire equation in terms of, if you care about voting and if you want Trump in there, it's not the hardcore Republicans that vote Republican no matter what. They don't matter in this whole equation. The only people that matter are the swing voters in swing states. So if you're, an independent or libertarian or a constitutionalist, or maybe you're a constitutionalist that doesn't usually vote because there's usually not anybody even on the ballot, but then you voted for Trump. If just a small percentage of those people decide, what, I'm not going to vote for this guy who's, raising the deficit, who's, still bombing Libya, who's, really who's now embracing this big fat ugly bubble that he called the stock market an ugly bubble in June 2016, but now it's his. So he's backtracking so many things that if only 1 or 2% of those people decide, hey, screw it, I'm not even bothered voting, then, or maybe they listen to Ernie, they don't vote anymore. So then Trump's not going to win next time. And so by seeing these ravenous Trump supporters attacking somebody like me, and just going all out assaulting me, I mean, I'm strong enough where I'm not going to let them sway me. But if you're your average rank and file person, all of a sudden now you're getting bombarded left and right, then you might be able to screw it. Well, I'm not going to go vote next time, or maybe I'll vote for Adam Kokesh or not vote at all. And so I see this. Trump needs to stay on principle right now. He's not staying on principle, and this compromise is what's going to completely lose everything, in my opinion.
Okay, another little bit of inside information.
Do you know all the companies that are against NRA besides Walmart, Enterprise? Is anybody?
Well,
I don't want.
I'm sure there's a list. Why?
Well, I don't want to go. I want to.
Well, send me the list, put it on Freedom's Phoenix, and there you go. It's got to have print it out if I cared. I make my own guns, so don't worry about it. A little bit of inside information. When I was gone, I got a phone call from DJ Quinn, the guy that coordinated the $60,000 for Frank to get on the ballot to run against McCain a couple of years ago. But they did it kind of half-assed. They didn't get enough signatures. They were challenged off the ballot. That could have been some fun. They come to me again while I was gone, and I said, look, I'll meet with you Wednesday when I get back. So last Wednesday, we went and had lunch, and they want to do it again. They need a U.S. Senate Libertarian candidate on the ballot, and they want to start circulating the signatures next week. Now, one of the things that is available is you can sign, even for federal races now, you can sign the petition by registering at the Secretary of State, and you can sign petitions for all candidates right there. And it's valid. Boom, done. They don't have to check it. It goes in the plus pile. So I'm going, all right, well, part of the deal I made, if we do this, we get a Libertarian candidate, and John Buttrick hadn't said hell no yet, so we'll see. And then if I have to, I'll do it, but I'd really rather get somebody else. But the thing is that we get up on the ballot, this is going to be a $100 million campaign. I went through in 96, 20 years ago, there was the J.D. Hayworth, Steve Owens was the former chair of the Democratic Party up to that time, and the Libertarian Bob Anderson. They did Anderson, Owens, Hayworth 1 and 2, 96 and 98, and each one was like, oh my God, we got to have everybody in the balance of power and universe of, and they spent $40 million on that 20 years ago. It was the highest costing election ever, and this was the PACs and the unions and all this other crap. Well, this one, which is going to be Kirsten Sinema, the Democrat, favorite of and Congresswoman of have no empathy and I will do what needs to be done. And then you have on the other side a Congresswoman from Southern Arizona and Arpaio. Now, can you imagine Kirsten and Arpaio? That'd be like, So then you have the Libertarian up there. Yeah, they're the same. There's different sides of the same coin. They just want to rule you their way. So that opportunity I do not want to let go. So we'll have some fun with that one. Just here we go. Well, they pinky swear, and so on Monday I'm to talk to them, and then by the following week signatures will be started. Part of the conditions was, for me to have anything to do with it, is that they turn in early, in the process, which would be the 1st of May. So it's like we're the ones to run against. The other thing is that they pay for a mailing that goes to all of the Libertarian registered voters so that they know that they can do this online thing. And it's an explanation openly of the deal. The GOP here in Arizona has made it where it's impossible, practically, for a Libertarian to get on the ballot, certainly without getting independent signatures to be on, when independents aren't able to vote for them anyway, which we don't need a massive number of independents to outweigh all the other parties to be able to determine who Libertarian candidates are, blah, 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 blah. So that all comes out in the mailing. They get it. This is what and why and who with and whatever. And they don't control. And they want us to be hardcore libertarian as possible because that's how their numbers work, where they believe that it pulls more from the Republicans. So if they're going to be spending $100 million on this campaign, half of that from each side, and they do $250,000 to get, 4% of the vote, which would be a 2% net of the blah, blah, blah. The cost per vote is so much less by making sure you get a libertarian on there. They're like, it's cheaper. Let's get libertarians on. Well, libertarians have worked with the Democrats before. When the GOP passed a law, we did a referendum. The Democrats paid for it. Barry Hess, the libertarian candidate for governor, was the head of the initiative. They spent $500,000. Barry came out as a spokesperson for it. They got enough signatures. It was going on the ballot. The GOP freaked out and immediately had the legislature undo that law. So it wasn't law anymore. So we got another 2 years with them not preventing us from being on the ballot. So this cooperation with them and openly is not a secret. And I told them, as long as you come on the show and we openly, and this openly and we open, we do it, we get a good quality libertarian candidate up there, it's going to get a lot of attention. And I'm just looking for an excuse to put up a bunch of pirate signs. I don't care who does it, man. We're going to go pirate. So this is going to be a very interesting year, and it's always Arizona. Why is it always Arizona? Well, there's a lot of geography. A lot of it has to do with the drug war. A lot of it has to do with our international border with Mexico. A lot of it has to do, and history has to do. When I was in Panama, there was a gentleman that I've known for years that retired from Canada, went down there, and he's heavy in finance and so on. I think he even had something to do with the finance of the Canadian government or something. Well, his wife's a doctor. They're down there, and she's from Colombia. So they live in Panama, and he's just one of those very entrepreneurial, kind of 50-ish guy, got a bunch of money, did well, and he's just, damn, I got to do something. Well, he's opened some other businesses, doing some things, got some contacts in Colombia. Colombia is starting to get out of this drug war thing because they're like, damn, that I don't give a crap what Uncle Sam wants. This didn't work out very well. So what they have done is places where you would go and you get shot immediately, especially being a white boy, are now, some détente going on. There's the FARC, which is kind of the conservative militia against, you got the socialists here and the conservatives there. And if you watch Narco about Pablo Escobar on Netflix, I watched that series and I'm like, damn. Just to live in Colombia sucked. So what has happened is that now they have an indigenous people that have kind of like reservations like we have here. It's sovereign areas, I don't know they call them reservations, but you have these indigenous people that have entire valleys and so on, and they have been the target a lot of the times of growing coca and for cocaine and marijuana. Well, now they're kind of leaving Malonism, and as long as they do it inside there, we don't care. Well, now negotiations are such to where a lot of the world, around the world, it's legal, and they need the medicine for the medicinal qualities of marijuana and cannabis. So they got, okay, well, where does it grow better than anywhere? It's freaking Colombia. You got 12 hours sun and light and the right elevation, the temperature of it, you try, that's why they call it weed, okay? So it be a growing. So they're, they're talking multiples, 5, 10 times as much as they can anywhere else. Certainly in the state of Washington or Colorado, where they got to do it in weather-controlled greenhouse, Quonset hut, energy-intensive, blah, blah, blah. They're like, hey, man, it's called Colombia, okay? Damn, Juan Valdez be making him some coffee beans and, okay? So this is, so now they're coming to me, and they said, I just come from a crypto thing in Acapulco, and they go, there's some requirements that a lot of these different governments have. They want to track everything. And we see the benefit. We need to track it because we want to have certain strains. We need to be able to document from the seed to retail and make sure that we have the product that we want and that we do different testing and that it's, been DNA to this and that, and we stroke dash barcode of something, okay? So I'm going, yeah, there's some, there's a lot of this in the crypto space, and it's going to be by demand for certain inventory and certain products. This is where RFID chips came into Walmart. You go in and they zap, what razor blade you have, or they come a van and they go pass through your house with a scanner and they know what's in your pantry. Don't laugh. So there's a lot of these inventory needs that they need to be able to ensure quality, that they can do payment, they can track deliveries, that they, especially when you're dealing with marijuana and the skittish, shipping and governments and so on. So I go, well, I know some people that are working on that, but more importantly, and what's of concern to them in this space, is who do you trust? Who do you know to be of character? Who do you know is going to, at least tell you the truth, whether they can or can't do something or working on or whatever. And I go, I can give you some guys that either do it, know who can do it, have done it, but more importantly, you can trust them, that I endorse them, that I'm not, sending you someone that's going to turn you in right away and screw with you in the back door of something and kind of, I know where they live, okay? So they're like, cool, we want to talk to them. So they put on one of the guys out of Columbia, so, they got, me talking to Colombians, that's going to come up somewhere, But so talk to them about what they needed and how, and I go, yeah, you need to talk to these. And I had these guys. Now, I'd gone to Stepwise, went to their offices, and they gave me the tour, and we talked about some of their capabilities and different things that were going on. So I had some of their business cards in my wallet. So fortunately, I had at least, a few in my wallet, and I passed them out every now and then for things like this. These guys, I go, here they are. Talk to this guy here, Todd, he knows what's up, and so on. So I don't know if they ever eventually called. I did emails back and forth. Yeah, we're working on it. Yeah, we're interested. Yeah. But for the Breakfast Club here, I go, it'd be a good idea if Todd came up and kind of did a presentation, as professional as we can get it, but did a presentation on what Stepwise does, on what they can do, what the capacity is, because they'd gone to Miami Bitcoin Conference, here a few weeks ago, right before in Acapulco. A lot of people came from that. They've seen the industry and what's happening. They went to the Philippines, where you have developing countries are being able to buy. It's like China going straight to cell phones and not having phone lines. It's like China going straight to thorium and nuclear without having, as many coal plants. It's like, when you got these developing worlds, they go straight to the new technology. And they don't have the infrastructure to deal with and, a lot of the benefits of this new technology. So there are opportunities, these economic zones, to compete with Merca, and you can write your own regulation as to what it's going to do with crypto, because they have no freaking idea. Well, we need a lawyer. No, you don't. You need to sit your ass down and start reading law, write your damn self. I go, you're going to be spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 training the lawyer on how to write it. I'm telling you, this is totally brand new. And I've seen this before. It was with my father's company, what got me into politics to begin with. There was a German group called Business Datenbanken. Business Datenbanken was the internet, but they were using it for commercial purposes, where the internet in the U.S. was all military industrial, how we can send plans between missiles of strike force if I want to build a plane. That's all it was. Huge missile systems. I went down and met with them at Deacon Cini's office back in, 90, 91. These guys were, and then when the Gulf War started, they didn't have any interest anymore. They go, now we got a war to keep us funded, we're good. When the wars start going away and the military-industrial complex doesn't have their money, well, then they're looking to, deal with some business. Well, who did that? During this time, it was Germany. BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, whatever. They were like, ooh, we can do some business. Well, it was the internet. These guys learned to communicate, and I told them, I said, by the time you come back to me, it'll be too late. A year and a half, they wanted to meet with me again, and I go, I'm not going down to Tucson. They came up to Phoenix, and that was right when the ASCAM broke. I got all kinds of stories about how to, but by the time they came to me and wanted to talk about, what were you talking about, this internet commercializing everybody and kind of, because what are they thinking? eBay, Amazon? They could sell their own, which they had, what you think Hughes Missile Systems didn't have, which is now Raytheon or whatever. They didn't have the manufacturing capacity to make the next little super Kickstarter widget of the whatever. No, screw it. They don't care. They just want a military contract. So what happens? Here comes some college student with an idea and a Kickstarter, and now we got CubeSats in space doing mesh networking of ubiquitous Wi-Fi of suck it. They could have done it. There was no incentive. There was no monetary incentive. There was no marketing demand. There was no demonstration of the free market to have it because they didn't even know they could do it. I mean, I can see what's coming. And what happened with the internet in the early 90s is what's happening with blockchain now. And it's going to have the same kind of massive impact on these companies, and they don't even know what they want or how they can do it or where to get it from. And the developers that can do this kind of stuff are not as many as you think. And they go around the world, and you can see, hey, wow, we got 1,000 coders that can do we got 10,000 coders. We got, one, they don't got, and two, that's a piddly-ass number. There is so many demands for this. Coming up with an inventory from seed to retail, something that you can track the quality, what it is, its genetics, where it is, how much it grew, who got transferred to what stage somebody gets paid of the cut of the next cut. You do that, and you're going to start changing the world. It's going to get way more efficient, and it's going to be peer-to-peer, and it's going to be faster than I just have a drone come deliver it to me. I mean, whatever. Who's going to be writing this code? The demand is there. Todd, stepwise, is going to tell us all about it.
Yay!
So good morning.
Morning.
So who am I? Some of you know me, some of you don't know me. I've known Ernie for about 10 years. Been involved in some of the more notable efforts in the overall Liberty community. And from that standpoint, these are my people. That's the way I look at it. So in terms of technology now, I've been in the industry for 25 years, worked for Fortune 500 companies, banks, credit card companies, e-commerce companies, owned my own internet provider for a decade. And
So what is your name again?
Todd Kandaris.
Kandaris.
And I sort of sidetracked me a little bit, but I've basically been around, and I built a lot of systems. So blockchain, wow, it's this thing, right? 3 months ago, nobody here probably even ever heard of it. I assume that, and I like to feel out the audience a little bit, but I'm assuming that pretty much everybody here has heard of Bitcoin. Maybe some of you actually own some digital currency or some cryptocurrency. But it's still a very nebulous topic, and so that's what I hope that this talk will bring about. But to refer back to Ernie's discussion of what Stepwise does is we are blockchain developers, and we're really dyed in the wool because we've been around long enough. We've probably got 100 years of combined experience on the team at the principal level. And then multiple developers, and we have a stable of developers who actually have real experience in the industry doing blockchain technology coding. And of course, we're all familiar with it because of the Liberty community, at least at our principal level, because we know it. We've been following it. We've been mining it. We've been writing applications. We've been doing this stuff since 2010. So the reality is that there isn't a big community of developers who know anything about this. But in the end, it's really just software. So our combined knowledge of the whys and the hows culminate in an organization that has the ability to deliver on whatever we call them use cases, but ultimately what you want to build. What do you want to do? Tell me what you want to do. We can do it. We will build it. So that's what Stepwise does. We will realize those concepts from the drawing board to the satellite, if you will, and make that happen. Now we've expanded some of our service offerings to sort of cater to the environment that we're in right now. I mean, it's a buzzword, you know. It's an environment of excitement and prospect. So we've also decided that we're going to offer, because it just is logic to us, the ability to bring an ICO online. And so we're going to offer that as a service, and we're walking people through those steps. Now, there's a great deal of money to be made there, and so, you know,
An ICO.
an ICO is an initial coin offering, and it's very analogous to an IPO, which would be an initial product offering, initial stock offering.
Public offering.
Public offering, sorry. So basically, it's the same idea, but it's a cryptocurrency. So with that in mind, we've come to realize that we have gained some notoriety, and we have had enough exposure that people are knocking on our door pretty regularly. I spend a lot of time in meetings, and people are bringing, hey, I got this idea, I got this dream, I want to do this stuff, and some of them are great ideas, and some of them are okay ideas, and some of them are just horrible ideas. But ultimately, we're there to help realize the good ones. We want to help them realize the first steps, which may be to roll out an ICO, get them some initial seed capital, or maybe to introduce them to venture capitalists or investors that might want to support that particular idea. So we're helping, one-stop shopping, if you will, get people from concept to product, and that's really what Stepwise does. So we're open to all kinds of ideas. Obviously, we don't want people coming in and telling us that they want to put, chicken eggs into an ICO, but maybe that's a real thing if you come at it from the right angle. It just depends. So that's where we are. We're available. Come talk to us. But now I'm going to talk about just some generalizations in the industry and some ideas about maybe topics that you haven't thought of with regard to how we got here. How did we get from the banks being centralized and controlled and having their hands in everything that we do to a place where there is as much opportunity as you have imagination. I mean, this is a philosophical battle that we're in. And the interesting part is that we have the tools to exercise this philosophical battle, to win in this battle, if you will, because the technology itself is antithetical to our opposition. They are all about being centralized. They are all about having control, putting those regulations in place. And there'll be arguments that, maybe there's some good regulations, and okay, maybe there is, I don't know. That's not my specialty. But what I am saying is that it's a thought battle. So you have these players, these legacy institutions, banks, governments, heck, Facebook. I did an interview with CryptoVest a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about the fact that Facebook had banned all ICO advertisements. And I only had to laugh because it's ridiculous. They wield a certain amount of influence in their ability to put things in front of people, but the reality is that why should we care what Facebook does? I mean, their mentality is we control this social network. It's centralized, and that is the problem. Their focus is on the paradigm of centralization, which is antithetical to the idea of decentralization and distributed systems. And so every time they go to make a move, their first knee-jerk reaction is centralize it. So they can't get past that concept. So in a way, for the first time in many, many years, decades, maybe a century, we have a leg up. We have an opportunity. But there will be a time at which they will begin to understand how to work it, even if they don't like it. And they're going to get out of that knee-jerk reaction. So we've got to move quickly to get these things done. So the interesting thing about cryptocurrency in general and how we got from there to here is that for more than a century, and actually for millennia, banks have been the middleman. They've been the universal middleman. They've always gotten a cut of this or a cut of that, but more importantly, they've decided what gets built. The reason they've decided what gets built is because they've controlled the investment money that goes into what gets built. Well, now we have a choice. We can, go around that rock in the stream, as Ernie mentioned earlier. We can do that. We have choices. And so we've created a new paradigm. We're in the midst of this. I mean, there's a thing that's purported to be a Chinese curse, and you probably have all heard it at one time or another, but may you live in interesting times. Well, we live in the most of interesting times because we have the ability to elevate humanity far beyond the last few centuries. We have the ability to open up these things about new modes of transportation, new ways of people dealing with one another, new avenues for the elevation of third world countries to a level where they've got, a minimum level of living. They've got the ability to not be working hand to mouth to live. So we've got a situation here where our philosophy has come into synchronization at just the right time in history with a technology that can help us get it done. I don't know, there's a variety of philosophical beliefs or religious beliefs out there, but I personally believe that is not accidental. I believe that is providence. So, we're then given the responsibility with this tool in hand to do something powerful, to elevate humanity and to free people. We have the perfect device at the perfect time in the perfect community to do that. So, yeah, I'm part owner in a company that does this, but I don't do it because I want to, yeah, they're nice. I like nice things. I sure as heck like a yacht. But that is not my main motivation. My main motivation and our company's main motivation is to get this done, to get this moving, to get people to a place where they're in a zone of opportunity. And we're seeing it around the world, as we've mentioned. There are these economic zones out there in the world. We've seen them. We've been to Asia recently. And they follow us around at conferences waiting to talk to us. We don't have to sell this because they understand it's an opportunity. They've been oppressed by the legacy systems around the world. The Federal Reserve, the IMF, whomever, whatever. Come in, lend us some money, steal our stuff. Those guys. They need to get away from those guys, and they realize that. And so they're doing whatever they can, and they're practically begging us to come and build these systems there. And once again, why should we care what the regulators say here? Why should we care what the IMF does? We basically have the tool in hand to do what we need to do. Now, they're a cornered animal. They're a wounded cornered animal. And, they're a very dangerous thing. That's a very dangerous thing to have to be in front of a wounded, cornered animal. And they're going to lash out, and they're going to hurt some people. That's going to happen. We have to accept that that's part of this conflict. As a matter of fact, I'm getting subpoenaed to go and testify on Morpheus' behalf on March 20th. And I'm going to testify as an expert witness on blockchain and give my opinion of Morpheus as a person. I'm glad to do that. I'm honored to do that. I want to be there. I want to help him. Morpheus is our sacrificial lamb. He's the guy. He's one of the many that they've used to target their efforts against to scare people. Okay? But they can't get everybody. And as was said before earlier by one of the speakers, the world doesn't care what the United States is doing. That doesn't mean that I hate the United States or that I'm not a patriot or I don't love my country. Of course I love all those things. I've grown up here. I was born here. I've grown up here. I was a U.S. Marine. Yeah, America. But that isn't who we're dealing with. What we're dealing with is the they, those, them that want to control the world through economics. And that's really the most powerful thing. And anybody who's studied any history knows that any war that's ever happened has always really been about economics in the end. Well, we're in a war. Maybe there's not bullets and bombs and guns, at least at this level or on this plane. But we need to fight that war, and we need to fight it in a way that recognizes the time window we have. Okay, because there will come a time when they'll find a way to get in between, and they'll find a way to control it or suppress it. Personally, I believe it's not suppressible because laws and regulations are based on jurisdiction, and jurisdiction doesn't apply around the world. China's not going to listen to what U.S. regulations are. They make their own. Yeah, they're trying to crush their people too, but then, okay, what does the Philippines do? Okay, what does Russia do? Okay, what does Spain or Italy or any of the other countries out there do? These countries are realizing that they can free themselves from the shackles of economic tyranny, and they're diving at the chance. They're begging us to do it. And so, I was going to talk about a lot of other things here, but, I think most of the people here understand. And does anybody here not understand why cryptocurrency is better than fiat? Should I even address that?
Yeah, give us your 30 seconds.
So here's the thing about fiat. Fiat is by definition sponsored or controlled or sanctioned by a government. And that means that within those borders, they control the rules of how money works. Okay? And so you run into a lot of problems. That's where you get things like the Federal Reserve or the Central Bank of Colombia or whatever the heck it is there, making the rules about who gets to play, and who gets to pay, and who gets to build stuff, and who gets the loans. Well, the thing is that up until now, at least in the United States for the last century or so, we only had one choice. If you wanted to buy something, if you wanted to get a loan, if you wanted to use a currency, you had to use the US dollar. Okay, so now we're in a world where there are as many options for currency as there are systems to support it. And they don't have borders, and they aren't supported by governments, and they aren't bound by regulations. So as long as we don't use that money, we don't have to worry about it. Now, for a while, we're going to have to interface with the legacy system, and that's where the rub comes right now, because that's where they, those, them put the choke points. That's where they create these difficulties in us going from crypto to fiat and back and forth, and that's where their regulations apply. And so what comes to mind, and we've had this conversation around the office a couple of times, is that the old gospel that says, Jesus said, "Render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's." I think what he was really saying was, if you're going to use their stuff, you're going to have to play by their rules. Now, granted, it was a little tougher back then. There's no such thing as cryptocurrency, but now we have this tool. So if we have the ability to transmit economic value in a way that doesn't use Caesar's currency, we don't have to listen to Caesar's rules. We can do what we want to do. And if I want to deal with a vendor, then I just send them the money. I don't have to go through a bank. I don't have to go through some sort of 15-day wire transfer crapola, or checking to see if I'm buying AR-15 parts or whatever the hell it is. The reality is those rules no longer apply. And I think that's partly what comes to mind when you start to think about traveling the world and seeing these other perspectives. You've got these countries that are so thirsty for economic development that you begin to see that, the United States is not the only game in town anymore. And they don't have control, the Federal Reserve doesn't have control over how dollars are used. And so now we've got a situation where any one of these currencies can be used to transmit value. And what's nice about this is now we have a choice. Where we had no choice before, we have a choice. So if a currency decides to not play fair or do something that we don't like, guess what? There's like 1,500 or more, and more every day, out there to choose from. So we find and invest in these things, in these currencies, and they gain by their reputation. Which is, once again, going back to why cryptocurrency is better than fiat currency, because a cryptocurrency can gain a reputation. It can gain a fair play set of rules. And if they decide to change that, guess what? We just step aside and move to the next one. Because there's 100 different other companies out there, 100 different entities developing new ways to transmit economic value that might have a better deal. Maybe they charge less of a transaction fee. Maybe they allow any transaction size you want. And they don't want to limit it to, over 10,000 you got to report in the fiat world. Those kinds of things. So you've got the ability to deal with who you want, when you want, how you want, and that puts them at a distinct disadvantage because they're not going to change their game. Because their game is antithetical to real freedom and real economic freedom and real development. Their model is, we want to put our arms around all of it. We want to control it all. And the problem is, if that mindset is what controls economic value, they're an automatic loser. They're Facebook trying to control ICO releases by saying, well, we're not going to let them be on our platform. Okay, well, I guess we just won't use your platform anymore. That's the world we're moving into. We're moving into a world where reputation is currency, where your ability to deliver on what you're saying is your currency, where your honesty and your transparency is your currency. And so what's really very important to understand about this is we've entered a world of true accountability. And that means accountability for companies, individuals, governments. And you guess what? Nobody has to keep track of it because it's kept track of by itself. The idea is if you use something, it's got value. If you don't use it, it does not have value. And people will use what benefits them best. It really is the first true expression of free market economics in action. We're moving into that world. We're in a new millennia with a new monetary system. And that's where we're headed. And that's about all I've got. Anybody got any questions?
I did an interview yesterday with a company called Komodo, and they were talking about being able to launch an ICO on their platform that is interfaced with all cryptos. If you are able to comply, what's the word comply, be compatible with they didn't like the word comply, but
right. Why would they?
But compatible with their platform. Could I go to you guys and say, all right, we got open source code on something like Zcash that's supposed to be private.
Sure.
But I wanted to change a little bit. I think the confirmation time maybe a little bit different. Instead of going to SHA-256, I want to do this script thing because it has more arms race won't be as much on the A6 because it requires some RAM on blah, blah, blah. Sure. All this techie geeky stuff,
sure.
Right? So if I go over the years and I see some of the traits of different cryptos the way I want, the precariat coin or something to be, can I go to you guys and say, all right, design that, fill in the variables and the blanks and we'll launch?
Yes, that's exactly the kind of thing that we would do. So you would come to us.
So where's my pirate currency, man?
Well, I mean, here's in the end, we are still all, human beings that have basically given up our slave jobs to start working for ourselves, and we're basically living on our own savings at this point until we get enough momentum to pay for those kinds of development efforts. We're reaching out to lots of different people in the community. We've made some really good deals, but we've got to secure a situation where we've got 25 developers waiting to code, but they're only going to stay around as long as they've got payroll. Well, that 25 coders that have that ability can go anywhere. They don't need us, right? So we got to keep them interested. And so that's an expensive proposition.
I don't know, an ICO makes lots of money.
It does. Now, the thing about ICOs is that we would definitely not want to execute it here in the United States because we would have to deal with all of the onerous regulation, even the gray law that's being created right now. And say, well, we just don't like what you're doing. There's not any real rule, but let's let you in jail for a year until we figure out that law. Yeah, and we're certainly not, looking to get put in jail. So we're trying to do things in the right way. We're trying to do things in the smart way. We're partnering with international interests to do some of this stuff. We're talking to companies that want to do seed to shelf. We're talking to airlines. We're talking to, we've got 2 exchanges interested in standing up in the next 6 months. And of course, exchanges are a powerful entity because what they're able to do is maybe they're somewhat centralized, but they are a way to trade. Now, if we could get the Komodo technology to trade in a distributed way or a decentralized way, that would be a powerful tool. Those are the kind of things we'd be looking to develop for our platform. But there are a lot of other, I will call them modules, but they're components that live within the larger platform, like a reputation system, okay? Can I get rewarded for my reputation? Well, of course you can. It's just a matter of coding it. Can I reward people for providing something that doesn't exist that I want? Can I put a bounty system out there? Yeah, you can. Can I automatically do this? See, one of the things that was a barrier to this type of automation, and I founded Stepwise in 2015 as both an automation company, a process automation company, and blockchain company. So the concept of combining remuneration or money transactions with automation has always been dodgy because you got this middleman you got to deal with, and you got to deal with their systems and their rules and their ability to stop you getting paid. If anybody's ever been a credit card merchant, they know that if they don't like the volume you're doing that week, or they don't like something about a transaction, they can shut down your money and make you wait. Well, cash flow is the currency and blood, lifeblood of a company. If your credit card merchant shuts you down because they feel like it, then you've got to deal with their bureaucracy. That's a problem. Well, if you set up cryptocurrency, it's certain, it's automatic, it's final. So that's part of what's happening here.
Quick question, could you share the difference between the ICOs that launch a speculative coin and the utility coins that is the probable future of the majority of these kind of coins that will be created for commerce and for business purposes?
Sure. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So the understanding here is that there are what we're calling coins. More properly, they're referred to as node networks of a particular type of coin, right? So not a token. I'm going to address that just separately. So the idea is you've got, like, some of you may know about Nexus, but you certainly know about Bitcoin. Ernie mentioned Zcash. Those have their own networks that basically keep the ledger, that keeps track of who's got what, who paid who, right? And so those are independent. But you've got the concept of tokens, which most people, when they're talking about tokens, are talking about ERC-20. They're a derivative of Ethereum. In essence, they are Ethereum with something extra. And that's the ability to live and operate on the Ethereum network. And but you pay for them to create them in Ethereum, and any wallet that is compatible with Ethereum and an ERC-20 token can use these tokens. So that's sort of some built-in compatibility. And so maybe that addresses some of the compatibility there. There are other ways to create compatibility, but that is, I would bore you to death with getting into that. That's deep, deep code. But the difference between those and things like tokens are that tokens are riders on another system, and they're just different versions of the coin. And so they're created for a couple of different reasons. A lot of the ICOs that have come out have done nothing but create an idea and release an ERC-20 token, which doesn't have any other support than the fact that it's sitting on the Ethereum network. And they're counting on people's exuberance and excitement about whatever that idea is to go and buy those tokens. And they do that, and now they've got operating funds. The problem is that those are saying, we're coming down on people who are creating ICOs without any substantive ability to deliver, and who are making promises of future gains, and who are allowing qualified investors. Your grandma can go and buy any number of these tokens that she wants, right?
Accredited.
Accredited, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. And so, this is a replay of the turn of the century in the 1800s of the railroad stock craze. So what you had was, you've got people, oh, the railroad's going to be great, and so anybody could start up a railroad company and go sell some paper and make a lot of money, and then they turned out that they just sold a piece of paper. And ultimately, that's what the regulators say that they're trying to prevent. We don't want, your grandma to spend her life savings on some tokens that eventually become worthless, or that are worthless to begin with. So that's the idea. Now, the thing is that, once again, we're dealing in a world where reputation is everything. So, I'm sorry, you got a question there?
Yes, sir. I think I heard about maybe a month or two ago on either NPR or KTAR that 2 or 3 huge brokerage houses were considering rolling out some kind of a mutual fund based in investing simply in cryptocurrencies, which falls right into Ernie's contention that anytime a really good idea comes up, then the government or the fat cats at the top try to co-opt it. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, okay, so that I believe that's true. I agree with that statement. Basically, hey, if the money's flowing, they must be doing something illegal, right? So they'll make a regulation or make some way to get their cut. The thing about that is that, once again, these entities, they, those, them, only can think in terms of centralization. So their first reflex is, yeah, we'll just gather these all together so we can watch it and we can tax it and we can do everything we need to do to it. So, from my perspective, this is not investment advice, but I would definitely shy away from anything of that nature. I think what they're doing is they're playing on the comfort level of individuals who've had an IRA, who've had a 401k, and it's like, well, I did okay with that, so this is probably a good idea. But in the end, that's people actually refusing to take responsibility for their own investments and refusing to take responsibility for the security of their own wealth. Now, there's always a way. If you're willing to commit violence or crime, you can steal anything. Okay, there was a guy who got robbed, I guess, in Russia just recently. They held him to gunpoint and made him give him $1 million in Bitcoin or whatever the hell it was. But the idea is that we're all responsible for our own security and our own investments. And so, from my perspective, it's like, well, okay, first of all, don't tell everybody how much you got. I come from a rural community where the farmers talk poor and nobody tells anybody what anybody's got. So that's a truism for life. But I think the reality is that we need to be brave. We're going into a brave new world. We need to reach out, realize that these guys are criminals, and they're going to do whatever they can do to funnel us and lock us down and try to get us to pass through their toll booth. And we're out there saying, well, why do we care about you? We don't need you. We don't want you. You're not invited to this party. And they're not invited to the party by their own thought process and their own paradigm, which is centralization. So anything that centralizes power should be scrutinized at the very least, somewhat mistrusted, and probably rejected. So the idea of having a decentralized monetary system with a variety of decentralized capabilities, and that is something I did want to talk about, was decentralized capabilities. So all of this boils down to data. In the end, what really boils down to is the world now is turned to an economy of data. Okay? We buy data, we sell data. Data tells us how much we've got. Data tells us how much we need to pay. So the idea that we have been working with, and we do still want to develop, but we need capital for that, is the idea of basically a toll booth for data. And that sounds kind of, I don't know if I like that, but until you combine the concept of owner-controlled credentials. So basically, what that philosophy says is, IBM doesn't own your data. The city of Glendale doesn't own your data. The state of Arizona doesn't own your data. You own your data. And so if we give you a mechanism that says, okay, I've got control, I've got a handle on my data, and I get to say who gets to use it and for what purpose. And as a matter of fact, if you're going to use it, you need to pay me. Well, wow, we just created a way for people to get paid for, being included in an opt-in marketing program or whatever. And the beauty of that is now we have a way to instantaneously pay you, right? We can pay you for providing that information or allowing your information to be used in a certain way. But that also has a lot of other benefits too, because when combined with data stores which are encrypted, to which you have the keys, that are publicly available. So anybody can go download this data, right? Can't use it. It's garbage, right? Oh, but I got to go get your key. And when you give me your key, you give me it with a set of stipulations on which allow me to use it. How long do I get to use it? Are you validating who I am or what kind of an organization I am? Are you validating my geolocation? Are you giving me a window in which I can use this data and how many times I can access it? Okay, all of these things can be passed through those owner-controlled credentials. That's a trademark construct we created for our platform, and the idea is that there will be a myriad of these. We call them cooperative ancillary data stores, and they are databases that are around the world using the node system, just like cryptocurrency does. And that's a use of the blockchain. So what you've got then is you've got databases that are replicated around the world that are completely open and accessible by anybody, except they can't read the data until you give them permission. And then that is actually a franchise. So I could say, all right, yeah, I want to do a medical data CADS. All right, fine. And you go down and you buy this package from the data center that has our platform available. They plug it in. Maybe they lease it to you, and you pay $100 a month, and you make $500 a month on your data access. So it's a mechanism for you to use your owner-controlled data, right, or people's owner-controlled data as a way to create a toll booth, which makes the data utterly available, but pays those who provide the platform on which it exists. And that means, for instance, in a real-world use case, I got a doctor in Michigan, but I like to spend winter in Florida. Okay, fine. I got my information on the CAD system, and my doctor in Michigan has put my x-ray up there from my last exam. Then I go to Florida for the winter, and my doctor down there goes, hey, I need those x-rays that your doctor took up in Michigan. So the owner-controlled credentials gives that doctor permission to go access that information on the CADs. He has to be a doctor, he has to have the key, he has to have the timing, and he has to have, the geolocation for accessing that data. Okay, boom, he does it, he decrypts it, and then the key expires. And then he doesn't have it anymore. And so this comes in from a paradigm shift of you own your data, not the companies or the governments or the entities that are out there. And we've created an absolutely new use case for blockchain to exist and operate very much in the same way it does today for cryptocurrency, but we've now created a universal medical information system based on that.
I'll give you a good example of this. I have a dentist, Dr. Hughes, that retired probably 4 or 5 years ago. And he was Dr. It Doesn't Hurt dentist. He's my favorite. How much Novocaine does it take? Bam! Can you feel that? No. You're good, okay? And he was recommended by some friends, because like anybody, I hate going to the dentist. Well, this guy is no pain dentist. He retires. I need the full set of x-ray, all kinds of stuff we did for root canal or something. I want that. Yeah, we gotta give it to you per hour someday. It's not here right now. Come by, call later. This has been over a year that we're going through. I mean, I haven't been hard. It's been Donna dealing with them and phone calls. It hasn't been me going up to the desk and standing there until. I mean, it'll get to that point. If I gotta have it, I gotta have it. With this kind of system, that information and data is yours that you make available to any or, oh my God, can I have access to it? And that's been the biggest problem. With all our kids that go through having their children and their ultrasounds and all that, who gets to go see that? You send it out with the private key for them to go view it on the blockchain, on the data centers or whatever. You get access to your own kid's ultrasound. All this kind of information, our MRIs, our blood tests, everything, it's like they get sent to the doctor, then you got to go to the doctor for him to share with you what your blood test is that you went down and did. And I'm going, this is just wrong. So blockchain technology allows for us to control all our own data and to have it more readily accessible to us and anyone we want to have access to it. In an immediate, right now, I got the special bracelet, I'm dying on the slab kind of way.
You know, if you're reading this dog tag, you have permission to go get my stuff, you know?
It will save lives.
Yeah, and that is one of 100,000 other uses just like that. It just seems to be a pretty familiar one, so I chose that.
Yeah, just yesterday, my wife, we took our daughter to get some sort of genetic testing done that she wanted to get done because she's a school psychologist and is ultra paranoid of stuff. Well, anyways, I was reading through the 17 pages of terms. I ended up refusing to do it because it said that we're going to take your information and we promise we're going to de-identify it. Then we're going to transmit it to the National Institute of Health. I'm like, well, the hell you're going to submit my information to the National Institute of Health, and because then all of a sudden my DNA information gets out, and oh yeah, by the way, we're not liable if it gets out anyways. But I see what you're talking about as a perfect solution around this, where you actually control your data and say, okay, you guys can have my data for X amount of time, but you need my hash private key in order to give it up. So I see that being a huge application use case for this, and also to touch on Pat's comment about these big banks starting getting Bitcoin. Just the other day, a Goldman Sachs group, I think it was 4 or 5 days ago, bought Poloniex, one of the largest U.S. exchanges. So at the same time they're saying, don't buy Bitcoin, it's going to go down to zero, then they buy.
Yeah, I mean, that's been happening for the last couple of years, right? I mean, you've got Jamie Dimon out there calling Bitcoin a scam, and then his company goes out and gets involved in a company that deals in what? Cryptocurrency. So,
Man.
in the end, you've got these guys. We know that they'll stand up and they'll say, trust us. We'll take care of your money. Well, sure they will. Just like they'll take care of my girlfriend. I mean, the reality is that we know that they are criminals with suits and ties on. And they're going to say what they need to say, and they're going to legitimize what they need to legitimize, and they're going to persecute those who disagree with them. Hence Morpheus. And they're going to make examples out there. But the reality is that this is an unstoppable tidal wave. It is a tectonic shift. Okay, this is not a fad. This is not a bubble. Yeah, cryptocurrencies may come and go, but the idea of using the blockchain to create digital currency or transmission of value is not going away. It's like saying that the cell phone was a fad and realizing that no, it is never ever going to go away. So that's where we are, and that's why. I mean, I saw this coming. I'm good friends with Morpheus. He'd come over to my house and tell me, "Hey, man, we got to get some more miners going. We need to make some more money." And I was busy dealing with my life, working for a company, getting my paycheck or whatever. And so I knew it in the back of my mind, and that's why in 2015 I started this company, because I was like, this is coming. It's coming. It's not mainstream yet, but it's coming. And about almost a year to the day after I walked into my CFO to the company that I work with, is a friend of mine, who incidentally is now our CFO. Told him, hey, dude, what's coming is this blockchain thing. You should really check it out. And he went, yeah, whatever. I got time. I don't have time for that stuff. I don't worry about it. And then almost a year to the day, I sent him a snapshot of Fortune magazine with a Hunter's orange cover that said "Blockchain Mania" on it. And I said, I told you so. And that's where we are. We're right there, realizing that inkling that this was going to happen. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about maybe the Federal Reserve creating a Fed coin and maybe outlawing cryptocurrencies in the U.S.? Have they done that in other countries around the world?
Can you speak up a little bit?
Okay. So the question was, can I address the Federal Reserve, issuing a Federal Reserve coin or a U.S. Reserve coin or whatever they want to call it, and outlawing cryptocurrency? Boy, that would be a Hiroshima type event, because that would put the U.S. at complete odds with the rest of the world. Now, it's not like we haven't done it before, but I'm not sure that we're prepared to take that kind of a hit. Because, as I said, this whole thing is based on reputation. And if you come out of the block with your teeth a snarling and you're issuing a currency saying that we are dominant I'm pretty sure the rest of the world's going to give us a big FU. And that would be catastrophic to our economy. So I can't imagine someone being so foolish. I mean, maybe, I mean, stranger things have happened, but so foolishness. Now, they might issue a coin, because essentially, USD, petrodollars, whatever the hell you want to call them, FRNs, are a cryptocurrency, or they are a digital currency, I should say, because 90% of the currency that exists is not in paper. So it's really, you know, a paradigm shift in a way, but more of a cosmetic shift, I guess I would call it. So if the Federal Reserve did issue that coin, it might get some attention, but I think that it would just outline the weakness of their position, and would probably bolster some of the stronger players in the cryptocurrency market.
If it was backed by gold, it might be interesting.
Yeah, if it was backed by gold, maybe. You know, I don't know. And of course, there are some of those out there. There are actually some cryptocurrencies that say we back our coins by physical gold.
Pinky swear.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right.
Now, there's
And
one of those.
you can come and look at it in Fort Knox anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael?
Yes, sir.
I have two questions. One is practical. Do you have you found any interest in Eastern Europe, especially Russia, for what you're doing?
It's fascinating. You know, we found a ton of interest in Asia, but they seem to have their own flavor of developers, coders, or whatever. I mean, so I don't know. I don't want to badmouth anybody. It's just they're a different culture and a different set of capabilities. There are a lot of coders that come out of Eastern Europe that charge a lot less than your Western developers. But I can't speak to their abilities or their effectiveness, you know, doing this. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't smart people around the world. There are, and we just have to be aware of that.
All right. A second question relates back to your last point about the gold stock. And it seems to me that when you talk about ICOs, that's putting the same semantic framework of an initial offering on some sort of an economic opportunity,
Sure.
which conventional thinking practice is like manufacturing something or digging something up or selling something physical
Sure.
to somebody. So I'm wondering, well, maybe what this ICO thing for the coins, maybe that's better developed by actually saying, okay, we're going to put out a coin that allows people to buy and sell and speculate on the future value of a specific kind of a thing, like gold as an example. Maybe it's organic milk. Maybe it's something or other that's more practical that people could say, well, I have a stake in having a future supply of organic milk.
Sure. I mean, I think that's yeah. I absolutely follow you, and that's actually a very real use case. We were working with an auto manufacturer that wants to collateralize or support their future production, their future factory production, by tokenizing it. So they're saying, you know, our capacity to produce whatever it is, vehicle X, is represented by these tokens, and however many you have is how much you have a right to our production in the future. So that
this
is
the way of doing an initial public offering without going through the initial public offering legalistic framework.
So there are two different things. One is using it in that way, so you're collateralizing the coin in that way. But the other way is what you're talking about is a distribution method. And we've talked about lots of different distribution methods. Interestingly enough, there's a model that says, what if you just give coin away to start with? You just go, hey, have some coin, do it. And then what happens is these things tend to increase in value through economic momentum. So as you create a flow using your medium, whatever coin it is that you've released, you are creating economic value because people are deciding that they want to trade whatever it is they have, a service or a product, for that, and it gains its own value through just its own inertia, if that makes any sense. That's an alternate distribution method. That, of course, is a little bit more difficult because you don't get a windfall of $25 million or whatever from your ICO. On the other hand, if you distribute it properly, you could, say, hold 50% of your complete stock of those coins, and when those gain some notoriety or some value through their own momentum, what you're holding rises, and that's the way you get your revenue.
Okay, yeah, but that kind of scheme of thinking, you need a pull. Something has got to.
Well, that's where these ICOs are going. Yeah,
flow,
that's where these ideas are going with the ICOs. It's like, I got a wonderful idea. What if I can do an ICO that tokenizes energy production? Okay, cool. That's a great idea. Cool. People really like it, and they buy into it. And there are probably several coins out there that purport to represent economic.
But you got to be actually connected to an exact.
Yeah, you're talking a physical
Now,
commodity.
let me tell you what ICOs are. I've seen this develop over time. You're investing in a capability or a future idea. That was never really possible before.
Yes.
You know, you could go and you get money from your in-laws, or somebody would pay you for you to go and do this great idea that you had.
Yeah.
Mom, Dad, if I could do this or write this code or get this VisiCalc program, a spreadsheet of whatever, I'll be a gazillionaire, and, you know, give me money and my idea. For you to be able to do that as a crowdsourcing was not really possible, other than you just scream it, I guess, and somebody give you money. The closest you have was initial public offerings, where you would go through all of this crap to even be listed so people can invest in this idea, or the dot-com bubble and all that kind of stuff. But they were just as risky, and oftentimes riskier, because they had the legal framework over which you could do it and rip people off. I legally ripped you off. I legally had this, you know, seal of approval of I got a certification, I can rip you off.
Your money's still gone. But
yeah, it's gone. Okay. So what happened was, you know, I didn't trust any of these any more than these over here. It was just a way for them to make money, and they had this big giant infrastructure of lawyers and compliance crap that they had to go through for them to be able to do it, and nobody else could. So here comes T0 and Patrick Byrne. He's going to have a platform by which you get to do a trade, and the transaction is the settlement, not this 3 days later thing or paperwork or somebody's going to do whatever and maybe sort of you might get some. Well, this is, you did the transaction, that is the settlement, and you're done and we're good. And it cuts out a whole bunch of the banks and middlemen. Well, that concept, you know, itself could be an ICO. But nope, you're not allowed, you got to do it through the machine. He goes, fine, we'll do it through the machine. Because then, once we get in part of the machine, we can do ICOs for ideas and everybody else that can do it, and it'd be easier. But then they say, oh, no, I'm sorry, you got to have certified super investors. And much as I'm going, oh, this is, man, I'll put I'll put $10,000 into this because I just know I'm going to make me some bank because I'm willing to take the risk of investing in an idea, philosophy. No, you're not allowed, Mr. Ernest Hancock, because you're not a what?
Accredited.
Accredited. You're not an accredited investor. You don't have enough money. You're too stupid.
You're too poor.
You're too poor. You didn't do it right.
Too poor to make
okay?
money.
You're not allowed to make a shitload of money because you know something.
You're in the wrong class.
You're the wrong class, okay? So then I'm going, in competition with that are these ICOs that I can invest in a cryptocurrency that represents an idea, that represents a new kind of software. It represents a coin that has certain features. It represents a concept of something, okay? So these tokens, these cryptos that come out allow for something. And if I can do that by me coming up and saying, I will invest in this initial coin offering by just buying the coins. That's all you have to do. I have like a bunch of MaidSafe, and when it takes off, it does, I do good. No muss, no fuss, no paperwork. All I have to have is a private key. Well, what the government has done is they're saying there are way too many more billionaires and millionaires and, you know, freedom-oriented young people out there that got, and they didn't have our permission slip. Damn it, you know. So these ideas, what you're talking about, what am I investing in? It can be whatever they say. But the big thing that you're investing in is an idea. There's a concept. A company, a freedom-oriented, whatever the heck it is,
by doing that, all of a sudden, you've wrested the control of, you're not in the right class to be able to be rich by these different purveyors of, you got permission slip.
And that's
You know,
why the third world is jumping at this.
so this is what I wanted you. We got to wrap it up, but give it to Frank. But what I wanted to have happen is exactly that. For most people on the planet, you wouldn't even know where to start. You wouldn't know who to talk to. You wouldn't know where to go. You wouldn't know where to send me to somebody that does know. Well, now you do. You know, Todd and Stepwise, you know, Mike and these guys, they are there doing this, traveling the world, understanding where the niches are and how you can do it. And I interview a lot of guys and meet them too, and we collaborate, and I say, go check this out and look at this and this guy and whatever. But I'm telling you, you are right here in this group, in Arizona Breakfast Club, have access to way more information, or I know a guy, and that superpower of I know a guy, than a lot of people on this planet. And the reason is because, you know, we're freedom-oriented activists and we know. But I don't want you to be in a position to where you can't just dream. You come up with an idea and it can be implemented by these guys. That's all we're looking for.
Or somebody else does and they tell you about it and you're interested. Bring them to us.
Mike's got to say something, man. He ran up here. Do it.
One of the things I wanted to say is, you know, you guys have all been paying attention to the way that things have been developing in the global politics, and a lot of that's thanks to Ernie for making sure that, you know, there's a way to get access to a lot of the information. One of the things that we are setting up is an incubator. If you're interested in helping to develop blockchain opportunities, we will be putting on some trainings that will lead to employment opportunities with our company. So if you really are a believer in the technology and you want to do good for humanity and leave this place better than, you know, we inherited it, then and you want to go that way, we're just, I guess, drop your name on us and we'll keep you posted on those training events.
Any other final questions or comment you want to make?
2 more questions.
Yes, sir. Speaking of Russia,
Yeah, we're speaking of Russia.
could you ever foresee a situation where if cryptocurrencies became extremely popular in Russia, and if Putin's still around at that time, and him being the control freak that he is and willing to kill literally anybody that stands in his way, and he wants to know where the money is and what it's doing, especially if he thinks that it's not doing what he wants. Do you think that, at least in Russia, that cryptocurrencies and their trading would still be able to operate under the government radar?
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. I can't purport to know anything about Russia's internal security capabilities or what they can do or their new KGB or whatever the hell it is there now. But the reality is that this is a huge game of whack-a-mole for governments around the world. Every time they turn around to try to quash some idea or some capability, that is going to spawn 5 more opportunities because their attention is somewhere else. This is not quashable. The Pandora box is open, cat's out of the bag, genie's out of the bottle. You are not putting her back in. Okay, so the reality is, yes, individuals could be hurt by government's knee-jerk reactions or them lashing out or trying to make examples. But in the end, humanity will win because you can't stop this. So, I mean, that's where I'm at with that. And I've said so in multiple publications. So, you know, that's where I'm at. There was one more question?
Your name is
Todd Canderas. That's right. I'm Todd Canderas, yeah.
Todd, he's Todd. What's your question?
Got it. All right, then. I'd like to make a presentation to your group.
Okay.
At some point.
Sure.
Should I just call you?
Just give us a call. We'll set an appointment. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've been waiting a long time, and I know.
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas and stuff. I tell you, for me, I need pirate currency. And there's a lot of people that say, yeah, you can write your own, and we got the code, and you can,
Yeah, and then how does it get on the exchanges? How does it get traded? How do you fund something?
I did mention that we are building 2 exchanges.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I did mention that we are building 2 exchanges, which means we have control of what gets on the exchange. Just saying.
You know, this is, well, I want to make sure quality something gets on there, and I got pirate money. Because screaming about it, you know, is the only way I know to get movement on this stuff, and it's happening. But, well, Frank, go ahead and come on up and, you know, and get us our goodies.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks, Todd. You know, so what Terry, where he takes this and how, you know, Breakfast Club continues and goes on, we'll, you know, of course, support, and, you know, there's no central plan for freedom, and then he's going to be taking it on. He has his own direction, I'm sure. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that the world is the world. It's not the U.S. It's the world. And it's all about just opinion. What's our opinion? What should it be? Well, we've been gauged by our promises. You know, what our ideology has been in the papers. I mean, you know, what the impression of America is, what it actually is, and what the, you know, the marketing campaign is, what the campaign has been, the promise of the campaign, what they'll do for you once you get in office kind of thing. The world sees that, and it has been an inspiration. That's what I'm seeing. Well, in America, you this, and you got the freedom to that. I'm going, well, obviously you haven't spent any time in America. I don't know what you're talking about. You're reading the brochure or something, you know? So this is, but that promise, that idea is still alive out there. And blockchain and the freedom community and these upcoming campaigns in the 18 and 20 and so on, that is what's going to either reinforce this old idea of what America was, or it's going to expose us for what we are. And I'm looking at, there's a shaking out of coming, and you need to know that there are solutions and people doing it, and you know them. Frank.
Okay, let's have a drawing here. The books are on the back table there. If you can't find anything on the table, there's 2 bags. You can pause through those things. First chance, 8322.
Bingo.
8322.
Gotta be here to win.
Yeah, we got some more tickets. 8313. There you go. First chance are there at the table. 8316. 8316. No? They're at the hat. Somebody draw another one out there.
There's nothing in the hat.
Well, they're laying right there somewhere, a whole bunch of them. What do you got there?
8315.
8315. Try another one.
8314.
Come on, where is everybody?
It's rigged. Fake news.
8318. There we go.
Cool, man.
All right. We'll call that a day. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. See you next time. Drive carefully. Have fun.
I just want to say to everyone, check the website, ArizonaBreakfastClub.org.
Listen up, listen up.
I'll have information there about the next meeting, so pay attention to the website.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
Oh yeah, and tonight, Corsair's the second race with his Bitcoin.com race car. It's all Bitcoin. It's Cash is King car, and go around taking pictures and racing up at Canyon by Lake Pleasant.